Well, good morning, everybody. It is great to be with you guys here at Grace Church Online. So excited to spend the time together navigating before we get our 10:30 service here rolling. I hope you guys have been having a decent week. Hopefully you guys were able to stay dry this morning. So that's certainly one of the differences between you and those that at least physically came out to church this morning. But either way, it is just great to be here digitally with you, and looking forward to hanging out a little bit here in our lobby before we get things in full swing and full motion. So if you are on any of our platforms, feel free to, in the chat window, to say hi. Let us know you're here, and feel free to answer any questions that are coming your way. Let us know how we can be helping you, serving you in any way. Would be excited, of course, to spend that time with you. So a few things that have been going on with me, which is, hey, I got the camera, I got the microphone, so I'll tell you a little bit. I got the chance to spend some time on vacation, just some time off last week. And boy, I tell you, just spending some time to slow down and focus. If you get that opportunity, do it. Just that, honestly, slowing down, recalibrating, engage in the closest relationships you have, seek the Lord. So refreshing, so good. Honestly, just good for my soul to have that moment to really slow down and connect that way. It was awesome. And then, of course, we got to do a couple of fun things as well. Got to take my 5-year-old daughter parasailing. This first time for both of us, and that was just a wonderful memory and very relaxing, more relaxing experience than I thought it would be, but absolutely loved it. So I'm curious what you're looking forward to this fall as we kind of engage the unofficial beginning of fall here after Labor Day, as we head toward the actual calendar beginning of fall here in a little over a week. What are some of the things you're looking most forward to? I've been looking online, seeing some people already engaging in different fall activities. My sister-in-law, I'm pretty sure she's already had about 20 PSLs, and so that pumpkin spice latte order is getting very frequented by her. So, what types of things are you already engaging, or are you looking forward to as we kind of get into the fall? And yeah, fall is actually my favorite season of all four of them. I absolutely love it. I love the leaves and the foliage, and generally I love the weather. I love that it's a little bit cooler. I love that we can spend that time outside still, and not have to worry about being too cold. I love football, so I'm glad that that we have some of that still this fall. I was just talking with a family. They had their JV football team play yesterday, and we're talking about some of the pros and cons of how that game went. And of course, like many of you, I'm pretty excited for the Browns to play today and see a little bit of that happening. But yeah, all kinds of things. My family loves to do the fall hiking spree. We got 2 of those actually knocked out already this month. So looking forward to keeping that tradition alive. It's one of my favorite things about living in the Akron area. If you're not from this area, it's a gem. Things that you may or may not realize are a part of this area. Just they have beautiful metro parks. We're right next to the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. It's just so many great trails and paths to go on and hike or run or bike. And we absolutely love that and try to take advantage of it as much as we can. So really, really, really good stuff. As you're thinking about how you're engaging your spiritual life, right, your relationship with Jesus, just want to encourage you to make sure that you're being intentional as you build into those resources in your life. One of our major values here at Grace is that we would live life together, that we would be able to do things that mutually build each other up, to encourage us in the faith. And so one of the trickiest parts of that value is we actually have to know and be known by other folks. And so if there are ways that we can connect with you and help you and serve you in any way, and by discovering those communities, we would love to. We have lots of opportunities for folks to jump into kind of a short-term experience to kind of discover what it's like to be in community, what it's like to be a part of Grace Church through our discovery group. We have lots of interest-based and topic-based and activity-based groups called connect groups. Those are also short-term ways for you to get to know some other folks, hang out around that particular shared interest, and meet some of the leaders here at at Grace. And then we have longer term groups called life groups, where you can be in those for even up to a few or more years, really building deep friendships. My wife and I absolutely love our life group and the people that are in it. It's so helpful and so beneficial to keep us moving spiritually. And then, of course, there's even just ways to grab a couple of friends and continue to share in the scriptures and prayer and encourage each other and build each other up. And we would love to resource you with those kind of ideas and opportunities as well. And so, however you find yourself connected or disconnected, we want to help you take those steps. And so certainly, if you would like to explore those options, you can always fill out the connection card online or on the app. But you can even direct message us through social media and allow our host to kind of walk you through some options and help you begin to discover what those are. The great thing about all of those group offerings is the leaders and even the groups themselves are always able to kind of start allowing new folks to jump right into that. It's kind of one of our values that we want to help you discover that community as well. And so never feel like you're being a burden, but feel free to accept those extended invitations and jump into community together. So I'm looking forward to this morning's service. I do every week, if I'm honest, and you might think I'm biased, and that's fine. But we're kicking off a new series this morning, and really looking forward to having this conversation as we all head into the fall. Fall tends to be a little bit of a restart season for many of us. It seems like whether we're in school or not, there's something about the fall that feels like, okay, now I'm starting a cycle. Maybe that's from being in school even all those years ago for some of us. But it's just a great time to kind of reset, recalibrate, and look to what's ahead. And as we dive into this 5-week series, I'm just pretty thrilled for the direction that I know Jeff and the leaders have been praying about. And I really hope that it's something that God uses to kind of propel us forward and help us to understand how to navigate all the things that are going on. So let's see here. Joel, our morning host, has got a few things up there for us on Facebook and as well as on live streams. So check those things out. Good morning, Denise. It is good to see you. I hope everybody is having a great time this morning as we're dialing in for service. Make sure that you're a little bit distraction free if you can, and ready to kind of just really fully, with all of our focus, be ready to engage this morning. One of my favorite things about being at church, whether it's in person or digital, is the worship moments. And it's a chance to let those lyrics do something inside of us, kind of write themselves into our souls, right? Just kind of allow those lyrics to speak truth to us. And of course, as we sing them back, to reflect that and to offer that back to God. And it does something unique where we're able to build that in. And so whether you should have tried out for American Idol or whether or not you would rather no one ever hear you sing, that practice is so good for us spiritually as we continue to navigate that. I'll give you a little bit of a teaser. During the service today, we're going to be talking about a new resource that we've been putting together over the last month or so. And so, kind of keep your eyes tuned for that. It's been very powerful as we kind of process a lot of the different things that have been happening in our culture. So kind of stay tuned for that. And as we kind of take a look at all that's happening around us, I want to let you know of a couple of neat initiatives and then even a couple of prayer requests that maybe you can jot down and be praying for. One is we've been working with an organization called Urban Hope out in Philadelphia for years now. We love that partnership. They've done lots of great ministry out there in Philadelphia. And they've also had a wonderful way of helping our folks when we take teams out there and trips to kind of learn different ministry skills. Good morning, Carolyn. And so as those teams go out and as they engage in these different ministries, it's been a really wonderful thing. Well, a family from Grace here in Akron, Andy and Michelle Michael, recently became the directors of Urban Hope. And so Andy and Michelle and their boys and girl just moved out to Philadelphia just last weekend, within the last week or so. And they're settling in. I was talking with him and they're excited for that new future endeavor. And so as we look to next year and look for opportunities to serve even outside of our own community, you might want to dial into Urban Hope. It's always been a great option for us, but just excited for this new endeavor for one of our own taking on this new role out there at Urban Hope. And then we also have an opportunity for you coming up in just a few weeks. If you're someone that has been praying about how can God use me? There are people in my life, I want them to know the hope of Christ. I want them to understand the love that Jesus has for us. I want to be able to learn and be equipped and be encouraged in those ways. You're going to want to check out our Give It Away conference. And so you can find that on our website and app as well. And so check that out. It's a great way for you to kind of look at what is your next yes, which is this year's theme, something that God maybe is stirring in you or calling you to. How can you begin to take those steps forward? It's going to be a wonderful 2-day event, Friday and Saturday on October 2nd and 3rd. Make sure you check that out as well. And then we can always be praying for our global partnerships. You know, it's good morning, David. Thanks for short sleeve. Yeah, I can't stay away from the button-up plaid, my friend. I can't do it. And then Maria, Carl, good to see you guys. Thanks for saying hi this morning. You know, be praying for our friends and family members that are in the cities and around the world. I know that life has been crazy here for us in these last 6 months, and as we kind of exasperate that in different harder areas around the world, those trials and those issues are just exasperated. And so specifically right now, I'm thinking of our partners and friends and family in Haiti, and our friends and partners, family in Chad, Africa. And so if you are a person that has a prayer list, and if you're not, I might encourage you to do that, but jot those things down. If you want more details, you can reach out to us. Our Give It Away team would love to help you with that, but be praying for those folks. They're going through a really rough time. Good morning, Claire. It is good to see you today. Our host is putting up those links there for our next Yes Give It Away conference. So if that's something you want to check out, again, it's going to be a great couple of days. Looking very forward to that here in a couple of weeks. And as we continue to move toward our services, again, we're starting a new series today. Pastor Jeff will be walking us through week 1. It's going to be an exciting time as we process all of that and learn and grow together. And I'm just thrilled for the opportunity to kind of get this fall moving. I hope that you guys are excited for the fall, not only for all the weather reasons and football reasons and pumpkin everything reasons, good family time, but also as just a good time for that restart, that refiring of maybe what are some of our priorities as people or families and friends. What can we do to really lock in and be intentional today? Good morning, Masons. It's good to hear from you guys. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for saying hi. Yeah, it's good to see you. As we kind of look into this fall, like, let's not lose the opportunity, right? Like, let's not lose this chance to make sure that we're dialed into God. How do you want me to grow and respond this season? How would you like me to engage? And so he's got something unique and specific for all of us. And they might even look the same as friends or family or your neighbors that are also watching this morning online. But it's unique for you, something he wants to do in your mind and heart as you grow through your next phase of life as well. Throughout the entire week, you can stay connected to us on social media. You can always reach out to our host team if there's anything you need. If maybe you need prayer, maybe you'd like to set up a time to spend some time conversing through text messages back and forth or through the direct messaging features. Maybe you'd like to set up a video chat or a phone call, or maybe you'd even like to set up an appointment in our offices if you're in the area. You can always do that. Feel free to reach out to them or fill out that connection card. And we want to journey along with each other and help one another grow in our faith together. So make sure that you're taking advantage of that and that we're not just walking our faith journey alone. Well, speaking of being together, here we are about to kick off our services. It was so good hanging out with you guys this morning, rubbing shoulders a little bit. And I'm thrilled for what's ahead of us. Let's make sure that we kind of have our minds and hearts focused on what Jesus has for us this morning as we worship, as we engage, as we process with Pastor Jeff this regardless of circumstances and what that looks like for us today. And of course, after the service is over, we'll wrap up right here with some questions or feedback when we're all done. All right, we'll see you guys. Let's have a good morning.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in to Grace Church Online. My name is Josh. I'm one of our pastors here and want to welcome you out and thank you for letting us be with you this weekend and that we can find a way to connect here online. We've got an awesome service planned, and the way that our services typically work is we start off with some music and then we are going to jump into our conversation. We're actually starting a new series this weekend called Regardless of Circumstances that Pastor Jeff is going to start for us, and then we'll end with a few more songs as well. So we'd love to have you tune into all that and are just so glad that we can be together. And as we're getting settled in and just starting, we would love it if you would take a minute just to share this with a friend or to share it if you're on social media. And as you're kind of settling in, think of someone who you would like to think could benefit from the service and who would like to watch it with you. Also, as we're getting started, a great way to have a better weekend experience is to download our app. And so you can search for Grace Ohio in the App Store, and maybe you already have that on your phone or on your tablet. And this is a great way to engage the weekend. You can take notes, you can see the songs that we're doing, and there's all sorts of other ways to connect to outside of the weekend that you can find there on the app. And so engage through that, and we would love to connect with you there. There's also people who are live right now in your chat rooms who, if you want to interact with them, if they can pray for you or serve you in any way, they're live right now, and I would love to help and interact if they can. And then also something that we do just as we're getting started is we love to give you an opportunity to give to Grace Church. And it's a way that we can continue to partner together. We're so appreciative as you continue to do that, or if you're considering doing that for the first time. The best way to give is to text to give or to give online. You can find that on the app or online. And we so appreciate how you are participating in God's work and what He's doing here at Grace. And it's the reason we make it a part of our weekend service is because it's a part of our worship and we want to give back to Him. Before we get started, we'd love if we could just take 1 minute to hear about a new podcast that we've been doing called Mixed Messages. And so Pastor Joe and Pastor Jeff are here to tell you a little bit more about that.
Well, hey everyone, wanted to let you know about a new-ish resource that we've put together here at Grace Church called the Mixed Messages Podcast. It's been a lot of fun to dive into. Jeff, as we've put this thing together, tell us a little bit about why we did this.
Yeah, there was just a bunch of conversations that are happening kind of in our culture today that we know that the Scripture addresses and that the heart and mind of Jesus is important to have in when you're navigating them. But they were conversations that didn't really fit on the weekend as much. It just wouldn't make sense to talk about them there. And so the podcast is the outlet for that. So we've done a few of these already. We've talked about the kids being at home from school. We've talked about politics. We've talked about government authority. We've talked about how do you work with people who disagree with you. And it's actually been a lot of fun so far. And the feedback that we've gotten so far is that it's actually really, really helpful. We just kind of walk you through the Scriptures, the heart and the mind of Jesus, and where we believe that He would want us to land as a follower of Christ. So that's the point of it, and I think it's a great resource and tool for you guys. I encourage you to take advantage of it. You can listen to these. Where do you listen to these at, Joe?
Yeah, you can catch them in a few different places. So if Apple Podcasts is your bread and butter, it's also available on Spotify or Google Podcast, or there's also a video podcast on YouTube. And of course, you can subscribe and follow to any of those and catch these weekly episodes as they populate. They've been really great, even for us to discuss, but also to listen to. Got some great feedback already. And then, of course, you can also submit questions at bath.gracechurches.org/mixed messages. So we'll see you there. We'll see your questions, and let's enjoy this resource together.
Well, hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. We got a brand new song we want to teach you. It just came out this weekend. It's called Always More. Here we go.
welcome everybody. It's good to see you, and thanks for joining Grace Online this week. And look forward to talking to you about a new conversation, a fresh series that we're opening up called Regardless of Circumstances. Now, I'm sure you can do the math real quick, that the reason that we're dialing into this idea is because of the circumstances that we're living in right now, right? So the world is kind of topsy-turvy. I think when we look at kind of COVID and all kinds of issues that are going on in our world right now, we all kind of hope that by the end of the summer, we got into the fall, things would settle down into more of a predictable pattern. But school hasn't opened, or maybe yours did, and the kids are facing quarantines and checking in and having different kind of classes. If you're a college student, you may or may not have started classes or have some classes in person and some classes online. If you're in your career, you might be in the office, you might be at home, you're certainly not traveling the same way that you did, and on and on and on it goes. We're wearing the mask, we're doing the social distancing, and the frustration of it all is something that we're kind of having to live in. We kind of have to break out of this cycle that, once it's over, then we'll go back to normal. And we've all kind of been waiting for that. And I don't know if I'm the bearer of bad news or not, but maybe the stater of just kind of what's obvious, that this is not going away anytime soon, which means our lives are not going to return to whatever normal was, and we're going to have to live in these circumstances. And so how do we do that? If we're a Christ follower, if we're somebody who wants to honor God through all of our lives, or maybe you're not even that yet, and you're just kind of curious what God has to say about these things from His Word, regardless of our circumstances, how do we live? How do we go through this time of limbo? What do we do to move forward, to take ground, and to maximize the moments that God has us living in? And that's what we're going to talk about here for the next few weeks. So regardless of circumstances, how do we approach our faith and life and the path forward? If you got your Bibles, grab them. I want to show you something that's kind of neat in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 15. And maybe just stop what you're doing real quick, grab a Bible, open it up there, get a pencil so you can make some notes in it. Or if you're watching this on your computer or your phone, the church app is a great place to do that. And you can take notes there even as we go through the conversation. But 1 Corinthians 15 and then the beginning of 1 Corinthians 16 is where we're going to kind of camp for this talk. So set it up there, grab your coffee, prop your feet up, and dial in, and let's talk about this together. How do we go through this time of limbo? The Apostle Paul is writing here in 1 Corinthians 15, and let me just frame it up for you a little bit, because he's in this time of limbo. That's kind of what he's living through a little bit. So here the church is just beginning. The Apostle Paul is doing a lot of work of explaining Jesus's heart and mind to folks who are kind of new to following Jesus. As you follow Paul's journey, he had a lot of ups and downs. He had some big home run successes, but he also did some jail time because he wouldn't stop preaching about Jesus. He was betrayed by many friends who didn't trust him or support him. He was dealing with false teachers. So he was in a rough time. And even the direct context of this, he's even kind of talking to Christians about how we think of death and how we would go through losing our lives, because many of them were in the early church. They were being persecuted, maybe by the Romans, maybe by the Jewish leadership, or maybe by somebody else. And so the idea that to follow Christ, my life is going to be upended, my career is going to be upended, my plans, my thoughts, my dreams, my anticipated future is all going to be a question mark, simply because I decided to follow Jesus and maybe walk away from these other paths. So it's in that context that the Apostle Paul is writing, and he says this in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 58. He's talking to the early church. He says, therefore, brothers and sisters, stand firm, let nothing move you. Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain. So he's speaking to them in this uncertain time, and this is his counsel, right? So what do we do? How do we play out our faith? What does God want us to do? Where is he in the midst of all of our circumstances and the uncertainty of them? And Paul looks and says, this is what you do. You stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourself fully to the work of the Lord, because that you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain. Let's talk about this for a minute, because Paul leans into this phrase here. Guys, brothers and sisters, I want you to stand firm, stand firm. And what does he mean by this idea of standing firm? Is he just talking about being stubborn, being rigid, like don't question God? It's different than that. When you look at that idea of standing firm, let nothing move you, what he's saying this is we would probably say it a little bit this way: anchor yourself, lock yourself in, let nothing move you, don't drift away. Later on in the book of Colossians, Paul is talking, and he uses this term. He says, set your mind on things above, set your heart on things above. He uses that word set, this idea of like anchor yourself, lock yourself in, stand firm, and let nothing move you. Now, this is a fascinating thing that Paul says, because what he's drilling at here and why he's bringing that up right here is interesting, and it plays out, I think, directly into some of the times and the circumstances that we are wrestling with. Why is it so important that we make a decision to stand firm, or like he says in Colossians, to set our minds, to set our heart on things above? When I stand firm, standing firm or setting my mind or my heart is not a passive activity. It's a active thing that I do. I don't passively stand firm. I'm not just standing here and life is happening to me. That's not what Paul's talking about. And then when you go to that Colossians passage, when he says set, it's not a passive thing. That's a decisive thing. It's a cognitive thing. I am deciding to anchor myself to the truth that I have believed and locked onto, and in this case, it would be our faith. Why do we anchor ourselves in times of uncertainty? This is what happens, I think, a lot during uncertainty. Usually in times of uncertainty, especially kind of like the times we live in right now, right? Where life is just up in the air. It's just up in the air. The greatest temptation during a time of uncertainty is not really like walking away from our faith in Jesus. Very few of us will look and say, you know what, my job's up in the air, the kids have to be homeschooled, forget it, I'm not a Christian anymore. That's usually not what happens in these types of uncertainties. When we're frustrated and we're burdened and life is just kind of aggravating in a lot of ways right now, we're not usually like, I don't believe the Bible anymore. I don't know why I ever did. That's usually not our response to it. Usually what happens in times of uncertainty is that we drift. We don't usually walk away. Usually what happens is we drift. And we drift away from our interaction with God. We drift away from our interaction with God's people, the church, and we drift away even from our relationships with each other. We don't usually jump, right? I don't usually, I'm not going to church anymore. I'm not talking to my friend anymore. I'm done with my marriage. I'm going to be depressed. That's not usually what we do. Usually what happens is we we drift out of relationship, we drift apart from each other, we drift into despair, into depression, and it's a gradual move and a slow move and sometimes almost an imperceptible move. But over time, let's say 6-7 months later, over time, that drift becomes a big deal because it moves us far away from where we really want to be. So when Paul says here in 1 Corinthians, stand firm, he's not saying be stubborn. He's not saying, be dogmatic. It's not quite what he's at. He's saying stand firm. Let nothing move you. Don't drift. See, to the early church, he would look and say, there's a lot going on. Right? You follow Christ, you lost your job, you got kicked out of your house, your wife isn't sure she wants to be married to you anymore. Like all that stuff is addressed in the Bible. He's saying, don't drift away, don't drift back, don't leave what you know is true and right and good. Stand firm, anchor, set your mind, set your heart. Don't let anything move you. Don't drift away from Christ, his people, or the life that he has called you to. Now, what I love about this passage here is not only does Paul say, don't do that, right? So don't stand firm, don't let anything move you, but he actually gives you the tool of how to anchor yourself. So he says, don't drift. And then he, in essence, says, here's the anchor. This is what you do. This is the antidote to drifting. So stand firm, let nothing move you. And then this is what you do instead. Always give yourself fully to the work of the Lord. So the antidote to drifting is to give myself to something else. I give myself fully to the work of the Lord because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain. So Paul says you stand firm. It's chaotic. It's nuts. Life is kind of off the rails a little bit. And it's that way for all of us to varying degrees right now. My tendency is not to just walk away from it. It's to drift away from it without realizing it. Well, what do I do to anchor myself? I stand firm by doing the work of the Lord, always giving myself to the work of the Lord. Now, what's the work of the Lord? Let's talk about this for a second. Is the work of the Lord to pray harder? No. Praying harder is probably a good thing for most of us, but that's not the work of the Lord. Is it to read the Bible more? No. Although almost all of us could stand to read the Bible more. Let's just be honest about that, right? So what is it to go to church more? Is it what is the work of the Lord? I want you to catch this because I think it's important and it'll help this all to make sense. The work of the Lord is not like renewed religious activities. That's not quite what Paul's after here. The work of the Lord is this. The work of the Lord is relational labor. It's relational labor. So I'm going to stand firm because my tendency is to drift, right? The antidote to drifting is to do the work of the Lord. What is the work of the Lord? The work of the Lord is a relational labor. I'm going to work at the relational drifts that I'm wrestling with because of the uncertainty of my circumstances. Let's think about this together for a second, okay? Just think about it. Most of our friendships, as an example, most of our friendships are not, I'm done with you. Most of our friendships are, I haven't talked to so-and-so forever, right? I thought you guys were like besties. I haven't talked to them forever. Did something happen? No, like they went to that school, I went to this school, and we just haven't talked forever. Okay, what's the antidote to that? The antidote is to give yourself to the work of friendship, the relational labor of friendship. If I've drifted from a friend, the only way for me to get back to that mooring point with my friend is to call my friend, to get together with my friend, to do the relational labor of friendship, right? We would know this physically, right? If I'm out of shape, why am I out of shape? Why did I leave the gym? Why haven't I been in the gym forever? Because I hate gyms. Probably not. You probably just quit going, right? So how do you get back in shape? Well, you have to do the labor, the work to start that momentum again. This is what Paul is talking about when he says, I want you to stand firm because we drift. Always give yourself to the work of the Lord. The work of the Lord is a relational labor with God. That when I see that I have moved away from God, when I've lost my priorities, when I've lost my focus, the only way to regain that relationship is to do the relational labor of getting back to God. If I haven't been spending regular time with God because I got out of the habit, I have to do the relational work. It's not religious stuff or paying off my God credit card. It's the relational stuff. I want to know God, love God, interact with God. Well, that's why I pray, and that's why I spend time in God's Word. If I've drifted from God's people, because I just haven't seen anybody for 6 months now, and going to church with a mask on is so hard, and you know how it is when the weather's nice, you kind of forget to sit down and watch the service and interact with people in the virtual lobby. I got it. It's no big deal. You haven't renounced the faith. You don't hate Grace Church. It's not that you can't stand your church family. You just drifted. Well, what's the antidote? To give myself to the work of the Lord. That work is never in vain. It always has a return. And so I have to do the relational work. I gotta put on the mask and go to service. I gotta set the alarm and make sure that I'm watching a live stream. I gotta join the virtual group, the virtual connect group, or join one that's, I have to do that labor in order to reestablish that connection, see. And Paul, when he's writing here, he's looking in times of uncertainty, and he's saying to the people, guys, this is just kind of the way that it works. Like, anchor yourself, set your mind, set your heart. That's a cognitive decision. You're never going to drift into that. You have to decide to do that. Get back to the gym, get back in the group, right? And then always give yourself to the work of the Lord. That labor is never in vain. Do the relational work with your heavenly Father, with Jesus, and do your relational work with God's people. That's the antidote to drifting. Okay? Now, this is what's fascinating. In the middle of Paul kind of giving this counsel and direction to people, I want you to see the context that he's giving it in, because he gives this truth and this directive, but this truth and directive is not a pathway back to normalcy. So he's not looking at people and saying, if you guys do these things, everything will be back to normal, and then it won't all be so frustrating and hard anymore. That's not what he's saying. He's giving this directive as the formula, so to say, to navigate uncertainty. So look at the context that he's in. Chapter 15, we're kind of at the end of it, verse 58. And you go to chapter 16 at the beginning of it, and Paul is talking to these guys. And right after he says this, he says, this is how this might play out. He says, after I go through Macedonia, I will come to you, for I will be going through Macedonia. Perhaps, maybe, it could be that I will stay with you for a while. 2 weeks, I don't know. 3 weeks, I don't know. A month, I don't know. A while. Perhaps I'll stay with you for a while, or even spend the winter. I might hang out for the weekend, or I might move in, right? So perhaps I'll do that so that you can help me on my journey. wherever I go. Your journey to where? I don't know. I mean, I'm going to go through Macedonia, and then I kind of have to see what circumstances God has for me next. So that way, I'll stay with you for a while, day, two, maybe the winter, and then wherever I wind up going, for I do not want to see you now and make only a passing visit. I hope to spend some time with you if the Lord permits. Now think about that statement. He's just looking at folks and saying, guys, listen, stand firm, always do the work of the Lord. It's never in vain. Don't let anything move you, right? But it's not a solution or a pathway to normalcy. It's an orientation in a sea of uncertainty. And what Paul is saying here is, regardless of the circumstances, I'm going to come through Macedonia. I might stay for a while. It may be quick. I might stay for the winter. I'm on my way to somewhere, not quite sure what God's got for me next, but wherever I go, you can help me with that. And I don't want to just pop in. I want to stay. So I hope to spend some time with you if that's God's plan. And in this context of uncertainty, Paul would look and say, regardless of circumstances, we're going to stand firm. Circumstances don't dictate what we drift or don't drift into. See? Circumstances don't dictate my relationship with Christ. They don't even dictate my relationship with you. They might dictate my schedule. They might dictate my plan. They might dictate my final geographical destination. But they don't determine who I am or what I give myself to. I'm going to come to you. We're going to do this relational labor. I can't wait to see you, but I don't really know how all of that is going to play out yet. Okay. Now look at this. This is fascinating. So Paul sets in this time. I'm standing firm. That's what I'm doing. Nothing's going to move us off of our faith with God and love for each other. Locked in. I'm going to give myself fully to the work because that labor is never in vain. It's going to play out in all of this uncertainty. I don't really have a roadmap for it. But then he says something fascinating to the church here at Corinth. He says, this is what I think my future is going to be. This is really good. Catch it. Grab the phone, put the dishes down, grab the phone. Ready? Here it is. This is really, really good what I'm about to say. Ready? This is what I think my future is going to be. But in the meantime, this is what I know. This is the next verse, 8 and 9. But for now, I will stay at Ephesus until Pentecost. That's a holiday. I will stay at Ephesus until Pentecost because a great door for effective work has opened to me, and there are many who oppose me. Paul is riding ahead to this church, and he's saying, guys, we're going to stand firm. We're not going to move. We're going to lock in. That's what we're going to do. We're not drifting. We're going to give ourselves always to the work of the ministry. There's a lot of circumstances I can't control or even foresee. So perhaps, maybe, if, sort of, I'm going to stop by if that's okay with God. But, catch this. God has me in Ephesus. He has me in a place. I don't know my future. I don't know if I'm on my way tomorrow. I don't know if I'm on my way next week. I don't know if I'm going to be there for a month or I'm going to be there for the whole fall. I don't know, and I don't know where I'm going after that. But I know where I am right now. I'm in Ephesus. And I know that I'm going to stay here because a great door of effective work has opened to me. This is huge. I want you to catch this, okay? It's huge. A great door of effective work has opened to me. Paul looks at these folks and says, guys, I know where I am now, and I know that if I stand firm and don't let anything move me, and I give myself fully to the work of the ministry, that God has opened doors where I am at this moment. I don't know where I'm going to be the next moment, but I know that I'm here at this moment, and I'm staying here because God is working here. That mindset for us during uncertain times is massive. I wrote it down this way. I said, in every season of uncertainty, there are great doors of effective work that open to us. We are in a great season of uncertainty, and we're going to live here, and you know it and I know it. We're going to live here. Waiting for this season to be over is the wrong play. Looking for a golden bullet from God, that if you stand firm and you don't drift away and you give yourself the work of the ministry, it will be over. That's the wrong play. That is not at all what the Apostle Paul is teaching. He's saying, in this season of uncertainty, stand firm, don't drift away, give yourself to the work of God. That labor is never in vain. And there are open doors for effective ministry all around you. You have to see them. Where you are right now is where God wants you to be. And for the Christ follower, we always remember that. We're always looking for the open door of effective ministry. See? Bunch of us, school got blown up just a week or two ago. Thought we were going back, now we're not. It's half days, it's partial days. What are you supposed to do? My kid has a cough, should I keep him home for 2 weeks? Like all of that. Heidi and I are wrestling with that too, right? It's just the way the parents and kids are living right now. Is that persecution? Is that misery? Is that the absence of God? Or is it Ephesus, where great doors of effective work are open to us? It's incredibly hard to homeschool your kids, and it's an amazing opportunity to be involved in their lives. Doing something as simple as, before your kids start school, praying with them and asking God to redeem the day. Making lunchtime a fun time. Capturing the moments with them. There is effective doors of ministry, of work all around us, but we have to see it and embrace it instead of longing to be away from it. Working from home, your office building is shut down. I'll be honest with you, I hate working from home. Some people love it, I hate it. But if we're there, we're there, right? Is it persecution? Did you get ripped off? Is your boss being ridiculous, or are you just in Ephesus? And are there great doors of effective ministry there at home? What are they? Have you asked God to show them to you? My college classes, we were going to start this fall, and then they decided not to start this fall, and now we're all online, and the teacher doesn't know what they're doing, and the portal for Moodle doesn't even work, and I'm so frustrated. Gotcha. Did you get ripped off? Are you being gypped? Is your life miserable? Or are you in Ephesus? And is there great doors of opportunities of effective work open to you? Different set of relationships with your friends. Different opportunities to invest in your younger siblings. Maybe an opportunity to get ahead financially and not be so deep in debt with school. Maybe interact with the church differently than you were going to, see. And it's fascinating to me that in the middle of all that Paul is dealing with, he was looking and saying, my life is full of uncertainty, perhaps, maybe, or if God permits, but I'm going to stand firm. He has me in Ephesus right now, and I'm standing firm there. He has me here right now, and I, you know what I'm going to do? I'm not drifting away, longing for what my next step's going to be. He has me here right now, and I'm going to give myself fully to the work of the Lord, because that labor is not in vain, because there are amazing opportunities, because circumstances are so crazy, that I know that God wants me to take advantage of. I wrote this in our notes: dark times lend themselves to bright light. Dark times lend themselves to bright light. And for those of us who are followers of Jesus, the hope that we have, the the faith that we have, the peace that we have. It's a rare thing. Mom and dad homeschooling your kids, you not complaining and not freaking out and not finding the open door there is the rare thing. College student who got delayed, high school student who lost your sports season, person who's at home working on and on, all of this disruption. See? As a Christ follower, when I stand firm and I don't drift away and I give myself fully to the work of God, I do the opposite of sitting around waiting for it to be over. When I do the relational labor, see, relationships sometimes are more meaningful when they're more difficult. So when I do the difficult work of connecting with Christ, connecting with his church, connecting with my friends and neighbors, when I embrace the place God has me, I will start to see the effective doors that are open to the work. I'll start to notice them because I'm not looking past them anymore, wishing that everything would go away. I'm looking at them and asking God, how do I capture them and how do I lock into them? And dark times lend themselves to bright light. And we have the opportunity to shine brightly for Christ, as a church, for and with each other. See, it's a great opportunity. And it's the opportunity that God has given us and he has asked us to represent himself in. Guys, we're gonna live here for a while. We're gonna live here for a while. And I know that we all had hopes that maybe this fall, right? At first it was like, if we just get the summertime, and then summertime didn't work out so hot. And then if we could just get to the fall, and now the fall is what the fall is, and it's gonna stick around. It's just the way that it is. In that process, you and I have to decide what we're gonna give our lives to, right? I want you to catch this. If you're watching, look at me in the eyes. Right? If you're listening, stop what you're doing and dial in. But catch this. Ready? You never drift toward Christ. You never drift toward his people, the church. You never drift toward relationships. You only drift away. And many of us have drifted, and I understand. I completely understand. I'm tired. We all are. We're frustrated. We all are. And then the noise of social unrest and the craziness of politics and all the rest, and we just kind of want to be left alone. But we will drift if we do not anchor. We will drift if we do not do the work of the Lord, the labor relational work of reaching toward each other. And when we're in this season, we're 6 months in. If we've drifted this far in 6 months, where are we going to be in 9? What about 12? What about 18? We have to make decisions as an individual Christ follower, as an individual who's looking to Christ and investigating Christ, as a family, as a church, as friends. We have to make the decision to stand firm, to anchor ourselves, right? To not let anything move us, to not wait for things to happen or wait for things to be given to us, but to give ourselves to the work of the Lord, right? And to lock in, because God has us where he has us. And there are effective doors of work and ministry all around us waiting for us to walk through. Right? Would you ask God to show you those doors? Would you ask God to give you a different perspective, a different set of eyes? And maybe during this time when this broadcast wraps up, maybe after I pray, while the music's playing, just stop, kneel, bow your head, and ask God, first of all, to help you set your heart and to set your mind. And then ask God to help you see open doors. They are everywhere. They are everywhere. And those doors are generally full of some degree of darkness. And what would refresh the people through those doors so greatly is if light burst into the room. So would you ask the Holy Spirit to guide you, to direct you, to give you courage, and to capture these moments that God has us in, regardless of circumstances. We want to be the people that God has called us to be. Let me pray for you, and then I encourage you to spend some time in prayer as the band leads us, all right? Jesus, love you. Help us through this time. Lead us, Holy Spirit, to the doors around us, our children, our spouses, our friends, our coworkers, our neighbors, random people that we interact with who need a little bit of hope, a little bit of encouragement, a little bit of interaction with someone who has peace and certainty during uncertain times. God, help us to be who you've called us to be, empower us and lead us in that way. And Lord, I pray for every individual who's watching or listening as they take a few minutes and just spend time with you, that you would lead them and direct them in a personal and powerful way as well. We ask this in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Come together, strangers' names, our blood is one. your hands to the heavens, lift your voice to the sky. Praise the Lord of all creation, let his name be lifted high.
Man, I love that encouragement that we can be connected to Jesus through all of this, right? So that whole idea that we never totally drift toward Christ, and yet at the same time, my favorite thing about Jesus is his hands are always extended, saying, come, let's be together, let's be close, let me show you what life looks like, let me show you the hope that's found in me, let me show you how to be the light in the darkest of places. And so maybe today you're feeling like you're just struggling through this stuff. Maybe today you're feeling motivated, right, to go and be a beacon of light to other folks. And kind of wherever you might feel on that spectrum, let's jump into that today, this week. Let's make sure that we're taking those intentional steps forward. There's so much opportunity to be the light in the darkness, to help people out in our communities and our neighbors and our family members understand the wonder that is found in Christ. And I want to make sure that we can continue to resource and encourage each other. Maybe there's someone on your block that you want to continue to reach out to and help encourage. Or maybe it's someone that you're someone that needs that encouragement. And so you need to find community. Maybe you need to pray with somebody. I sense God doing something to me, but I don't know where to start. And so wherever you kind of fit, let's continue to be there for each other. Your hosts are online right now. They would love to have a conversation with you. You can always fill out our connection card or send us a direct message at any time. If we can resource you for your personal growth, if we can connect you into a community of people, into a group, whether short-term or long-term, whether we can connect you to an opportunity to serve and regularly be a part of that relational labor that Jeff was talking about investing into others, we would love to help make you that connection as well. We have lots of opportunities across that spectrum and board. So it's been wonderful to kick off this series with you today. The worship was so great to connect our hearts with Jesus, and I look forward to kind of seeing what God does throughout the week. And of course, we'll be right back here next weekend for round 2 of Regardless of Circumstances. So have a great week. Have a great day today. Yeah, I'll say it. Go Browns. And we'll see you soon. Love you guys.